Today's speaker is a dear friend and mentor, Shailesh Malde. He is very knowledgeable. He has a calm demeanor and with a sharing is caring motto, which puts him at the top of my list for a go-to person for advice. I have known Shailesh for a long time, from when we were both working at British Telecom. By the time he left BT, he had been there for around 42 years, rising to a very senior level. After leaving BT, he pursued his interest in yoga and has been a yoga practitioner for the past 20 years. He has a master diploma in gym instruction and personal training. Shailesh is qualified and registered member of the Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity, Level 4, and well qualified to talk about obesity and diabetes. Without taking any more time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand you over to Shailesh Malde. Shailesh, over to you.
Thank you, Umesh. Just a quick introduction to the presentation. So good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for attending on an Easter Sunday, sunny afternoon. Umesh, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to discuss the topic of diabetes and obesity. You've outlined some of the reasons why we all need to understand obesity, diabetes, and some of the root causes. It's one of the fastest growing diseases in the world, and as you say, it impacts the South Asian community particularly more than any other community. And I'll cover some of that in the presentation. My aim for this session is to explain what the two conditions are from a point of view of educating, so we all need to understand it. Some of you already may suffer from obesity or diabetes, are already aware. My specialist area is in the physical activity side of things. As a personal trainer, I've taken the courses on obesity and diabetes management. It also includes coaching for people who need help with things like nutrition. The absolute key message today is it's very, very important for us to manage our weight by controlled diet, exercise, and lifestyle. That's something I'll repeat throughout. There's only one person in control of what you do, and that is you. So we'll build some knowledge of what is diabetes, what is obesity, how would we measure whether we're obese or overweight, some golden rules for prevention of both, and finally, we had a session with Dr. Vani probably 6-8 weeks ago now. I've constructed answers to all the questions that were raised, what milk to have, what cooking oil to use, and so forth. And Umesh has indicated that we could probably do another session like this focused on nutrition. If there is a requirement, I can also do a session on exercise. So to give you an idea of the type of exercises you can do, people who are not able can actually exercise even on a chair. If it's a nice day, and if we're allowed, we can even exercise in the park. That's my contact detail. I'll give you a bit more detail of that later on as well. And that's my website. It's Shailesh at pt-yoga at .co.uk. Apologies. Okay, so how have we evolved? This is just showing you, sadly, we're actually at the right-hand scale of this picture. The background to this picture is really our traditional diets were able to manage a very healthy lifestyle. So if you're of African origin, for example, your diet was largely based on what you grow. And those who are from East Africa or Africa will be aware corn and beans is a very staple diet. In addition to that, they hunt what they eat. So it was very much a self-managed diet. Now, before we go into the slides, I've got about 35 minutes of slides, but within that, I've got a 8-minute video. I've used this video for many years. It comes from Diabetes UK. They've taken it off their website right now, and they've replaced it with something which is a bit more noddy. I find this video very helpful to understand the process of food digestion and also how insulin and diabetes come about. So sit back and enjoy. It's 8 minutes long. Please do listen. It's a really good video.
In this film, we're going to explain how your body processes the food you eat in order to provide all your body cells with the energy they need. And also what happens when you have diabetes and this system doesn't work properly. When you eat food that contains carbohydrate, it's broken down in the stomach and digestive system into glucose, which is a type of sugar. We need glucose from food because that's what gives us energy. Carbohydrate-containing foods are things like starchy foods, sugary foods, milk and some dairy products, and fruit. This glucose then moves into the bloodstream, and the body detects that the blood glucose level is rising. In response to that, the pancreas, which is a little gland that sits just underneath the stomach, starts to release a hormone called insulin. And it's insulin that helps our body get the energy from the food we eat. The bloodstream then takes the glucose and the insulin to every cell in our body that needs it. To make this easier to understand, let's look at muscle cells. At the muscle cells, it's insulin that allows the glucose to get into the cells where it can be used for energy. It's a bit like insulin is a key unlocking the door to the cells so the glucose can get in. That way, the blood glucose level starts to drop. But the blood glucose level can be topped up at any point by the liver releasing extra glucose that it has stored. The blood glucose rises again, and again, the pancreas produces more insulin to move with that glucose through the bloodstream to the muscle cells, open the doors, and let the glucose in. The body functions best with the blood glucose at an optimum level. It doesn't like it if the blood glucose rises too high. Normally, there's a cycle within the body which balances out the glucose and the insulin level, and this is achieved by the food you eat, the pancreas, and the liver. However, in some people, the system doesn't work properly and they develop diabetes. There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. In type 1 diabetes, the body isn't making any insulin at all. This is because of an autoimmune response, whereby the body has destroyed the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. We don't entirely know why that happens in some people and not in others. Type 1 diabetes accounts for about 10% of all cases. It's most often found in the under 40s, and it's by far the most common type of diabetes found in childhood. In type 1 diabetes, the carbohydrate-containing food is broken down into glucose as normal. That glucose then moves into the bloodstream. Normally, the body would produce insulin to let that glucose into the cells. But in type 1 diabetes, there is no insulin being produced, so the glucose can't get into the body cells at all. So the level of glucose in the blood rises. The body tries to lower the level of glucose, tries to get rid of the glucose through the kidneys. That's why people who have undiagnosed type 1 diabetes tend to go to the toilet a lot to pass urine. As the kidneys filter the glucose out of the blood, they also take a lot of water with it. So the person with diabetes will get very thirsty. The urine contains a lot of glucose, and that creates an environment where it's quite easy for bacteria to thrive. So it's also quite common to get thrush or genital itching. In the same way, the blood contains a high level of glucose as well. So more bacteria than usual will tend to breed in flesh wounds, and they might be slow to heal. Glucose can also build up in the lens at the front of the eye, causing the liquid in the lens to become cloudy. That can mean that some people with undiagnosed type 1 diabetes can have blurred vision. Because the glucose can't get into the cells to be used for energy, somebody who's got undiagnosed type 1 diabetes is going to start feeling very tired, lethargic, and unable to sort of go about their normal daily routine. But the body still needs an energy source in order to work properly. So what it does is it starts to break down its fat stores, and that can lead to weight loss. So the main symptoms of type 1 diabetes are going to the toilet a lot, thirst, thrush or genital itching, slow healing of wounds, blurred vision, tiredness, and weight loss. These symptoms generally happen quite quickly, often over a few weeks, and can be reversed once the diabetes is treated with insulin. Type 2 diabetes accounts for about 90% of all cases in the population. It's most common in the over 40 age group in the white population, and in the over 25 age group in the South Asian population. Type 2 diabetes is a little more complex because of slightly more processes at work. Either the body isn't producing quite enough insulin, or the insulin it is producing isn't working properly. That can be due to being overweight because a buildup of fat can stop insulin doing its job properly, but it can also happen in people of a healthy weight. So in type 2 diabetes, the carbohydrate containing food is broken down into glucose in the stomach and digestive system as normal. That glucose then moves into the bloodstream. The pancreas starts to produce insulin, which moves with the glucose through the bloodstream to all the body cells which need glucose for energy. However, the glucose can't always get into the cells because the locks to the cell doors have become furred up with fat deposits. That means that the insulin can't open the cell doors properly. So the level of glucose in the blood continues to rise. In response to this, the pancreas produces even more insulin. So the blood glucose levels continue to rise and the insulin levels continue to rise. This situation is further complicated by the cells, which are desperate for energy, sending out emergency signals to the liver to release stored glucose. The blood glucose level goes up and up, and the pancreas produces more and more insulin until it can't cope anymore, and eventually it can wear out. As with type 1 diabetes, the symptoms of type 2 diabetes are going to the toilet a lot, thirst, thrush or genital itching, slow healing of wounds, blurred vision, tiredness, and weight loss in some people. The symptoms for type 2 diabetes come along very slowly, and some people don't have any symptoms at all. So for that reason, people can live with type 2 diabetes for up to 10 years before they realise that they have it. Type 2 diabetes can be treated in a number of different ways. Initially, it may be sufficient to make changes to the food you're eating and to take extra physical activity or lose any weight that may be appropriate. But type 2 diabetes is a progressive condition and most people will need some form of medication to treat it.
going to now summarize what we've seen in the charts. The key message here is diabetes it's described as a group metabolic disease. Metabolic is the processes that occur in all living organisms. In our case, it's the breakdown of food and the processing of that food that's transformed into energy to meet our body needs, as we saw in the muscles there. If we have high levels of blood sugar, which is caused by inadequate levels of insulin production because of known conditions, the condition that they were referring to there is called insulin resistance. Your body is overwhelmed with sugar and it just can't cope anymore. That's directly related to our diet. The picture that summarizes the video, on the left we have a healthy person. There's a good balance of food intake, sugar, so a good balance of sugar, and the insulin is able to manage it. The middle one is no insulin production. It's type 1 diabetes, and that's supported by insulin injections. And the third one is type 2, where we are overwhelming our body with too much sugar, too much junk food, too much processed foods, and higher intake than required, higher number of calories than required. And that results in type 2 diabetes. These are the key organs that we looked at. You've got the liver at the top. This is our gallbladder. This is our bile ducts, our stomach, and pancreas, with the control mechanisms for our blood sugar level. So glucose in the blood is not able to go into the cells, as we saw in the little video. Cells can't meet the energy needs, and energy is provided from fat and protein. Using the fat as an energy source results in increasing keystone in our body. There are 5 types of diabetes. This is the scientific way of looking at it, but I'm going to look at it in a common man's language. Diabetes, as we saw, 5 up to 10% are typically type 1 diabetes, possibly from birth, inherited. Type 2 is 85%, gestational diabetes 2 to 5%, maturity onset diabetes of the young 1 to 2%, neonatal diabetes 1 in 3 to 400,000 infants. These are current figures from UK websites, mostly either NHS or Diabetes UK. As you can see, there's also a type 3 associated with Alzheimer's disease. The absolute key message on this slide for all of us is the single biggest one is type 2, 85 to 90%. This is the one that is costing the NHS huge amounts of money. This is the one that we can all control. And I'm hoping through some of the information I share, you begin to understand the things you can do to control type 2 diabetes. This is a very important slide. We consume around 2,000 calories a day, a little bit more for men, a little bit less for women. But this shows you the distribution of how that energy is used. Just to stay awake, resting energy, sleeping metabolic rate equates to 60 to 70% of our energy needs. 10% is what we call thermic effect. It's the digestion process which consumes 10%. The rest of the energy demand is required by the physical activity we do. Now, people say, I go to the gym 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, I get my exercise. Going to the gym for 1 hour a day for either 5 or 7 days is not enough. That will only have an impact on approximately 10% of your energy The rest of it, which is absolutely key, you keep moving throughout the day. Please don't sit there, watch the TV. Move, move, move. That's the absolute key message. Up and down the stairs, don't take the lift. Get off early at bus stops and walk home, that sort of thing. Now, Umesh talked about some of the after effects. I don't know how to get rid of this little icon to show how many people are on. Let's see, I can't. So we're going to talk through each one of these. The first one is eye issues, typically known as cataract. Now, most people have cataract in their 60s and 70s. If you have diabetes, you're likely to have cataract much earlier, perhaps at the age of 40 or thereabouts. What's worse, you get cataract of the retina as well. Second one is foot issues. Umesh mentioned amputations. You're 10 times more likely to have amputations if you were diabetic. Skin issues, discussed on the video, would be dry, irritable, gum and tooth decay, gum infections and diseases, mental health, the stress and depression caused by your blood sugar level. Immune system is weakened. I have to ask you one question. Why would we allow ourselves to get into this condition? Multiple health conditions, because this I'm referring to the type 2 diabetics, because we've not taken care of exercise, diet, and basically our lifestyle. It's up to us to make the change. If you get warnings of you're either overweight or you're obese or you're pre-diabetic, please change. It'll change your life. What can we do about this? I'll cover that shortly. I want to cover obesity next. What is obesity? I think we all know what obesity is. But I'm going to give you a definition, and for South Asian community, it's even more serious. And so I've included some numbers for the South Asian community as well. So obesity, as it says there, it's the single biggest threat that we have in society globally. Even in developing countries like India, where obesity was not an issue, it's now becoming an issue. Too many McDonald's, too many Pizza Huts, too many fizzy drinks. Loaded in sugar, loaded in fat. In the last 20 years, we've doubled the rate of obesity globally, and that includes the UK. And in 2050, the estimated UK amount of spend is going to be in the order of 50 billion. The majority of the obese adults do not identify themselves as obese. This slide, the reason for showing this slide, even if you're thin on the outside, I was speaking to a relative this morning, he says he's very thin and he's trying to put on weight. The way he's putting on weight is junk food and beer. That will make him fat on the inside. This creamy color is visceral fat. That fat will build around your organs, and that's actually a very dangerous fat to have in your body. So what is obesity? How do we measure it? Obesity is basically having excess fat and it's measured in relation to our weight and height. It's called body mass index. If you know your weight, if you divide that by height squared, that gives you your BMI or body mass index. The white column is the NICE recommendation, the NHS recommendation of what the limits are. So we're normal if we're under 24.9, overweight if you're over 25 and between up to 29.9. That is the first sign that you're leading into obesity, and that could lead into diabetes. And above 30 is high risk of diabetes, and you're considered obese. Above 40, I'll cover that shortly, severely obese. For the South Asian community, you can see the numbers are much lower. So 22.9 is the upper limit, 26.9 and 27. So we have to be extra careful. There's a picture here which shows non-Asian people tend to get body fat in the lower body, but Asian people, South Asian people, tend to get it in the whole body, upper and lower, especially in the stomach area. So BMI is one measure. It's quite a crude measure. Another measure combined with BMI, which NICE recommend, is to measure your waistline. So if your waistline is under 37, for men, it's a desirable waistline, and for women, under 31 inches. Oops, don't know how that happened. Let me go back. And you can see what it is for high and very high. When I was volunteering for the BHF, British Heart Foundation, this was the measure that they used to give an indication. And they used to do a special measure tape. For me, and from the studies I've done, this is one of the best ways to measure your risk. You measure your waist, you measure your hip, it's called the hip-waist ratio. You divide one by the other and you achieve a hip-waist ratio. If your ratio is under 0.9 or lower, you're at no risk. If it's above, you're at risk. Above 1, you're at high risk. So this is the table I would recommend we use. Obesity is quite prevalent in the 55 to 64 age group. People retired early, had a good career, built plenty of wealth, and now are junking it out. Sadly, holidays, little exercise, lots of food. It's called food traps. I cover food traps later on. Some startling figures. Umesh has mentioned some of these. 58% of women and 68% of men are overweight or obese in the United Kingdom, as per the 2015 report. It's increased from 15% in 1993 to 27% in 2015. Fairly short time scale. And it's increasing with children, as you can see, 1 in 5 children in reception and over 1 in 3 in 6 years, in year 6, are measured to be obese or overweight. It's a growing concern, it's a serious concern, it's in our control. This is the chart I referred to. If you're over 40, some of you may remember if you can pinch an inch, it's too much. Well, this guy can pinch a bit more than that, or this lady. Over BMI over 40, it's a very serious condition. They will have additional medical procedures to address this. I'll just leave it there for a second. As an example there, 80 kg weight, 1.75 height meters, and that comes to a BMI of 26.12. That means the person is just slightly overweight. Over 500,000 admissions into hospital because of obesity, a huge cost on the NHS, and that's directly related to a huge cost in the tax we pay, because we're having to pay for this. I'm going to go through, we've talked about the problems that we have with diabetes, eye problems, amputations. There's three or four big ones with obesity. The first one is hypertension. It's high blood pressure. 43% of obese men and 37% of obese women compared to 21% of men and 18% of women with BMI within normal range. That means the nation as a whole needs to address this, because the next condition that's going to bite us is high blood pressure. It's the #1 killer in the UK. Obesity leads to diabetes. If you're diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, this is your first warning sign. Higher risk of developing diabetes. And it's our first opportunity, hopefully not the first, but it's probably our last opportunity to manage our weight, manage our exercise, manage our calorie intake, change our lifestyle to get out of the obesity and diabetes chain. Okay, how can we prevent obesity and diabetes? These are some golden rules that I've developed. All common sense. If you're overweight or obese, we must take action to prevent that unhealthy weight gain, because that will lead to other long-term problems. UK recommendation, NICE guidelines, is 150 minutes of moderate to intense exercise. For people who are obese or diabetic, we recommend 300 minutes of moderate exercise. Ideally, 7 days a week. You can have a restful Sunday, but you must exercise. That exercise recommendation is 2 strength sessions and 5 respiratory cardio activity sessions. So walking, treadmill, and so forth. A lot of our people tell me that I walk every day. I do 60 minutes walk or 90 minutes walk. It's not the fact that you walk every day, that is moving, and that's very good for you. But are you pumping your heart? Are you getting breathless? Is your body working? If it's a stroll for 60 minutes, it's not as effective as a 30-minute brisk walk or a jog. Create a plan and follow your plan. Measure your calories. Have nutrition-dense foods. We'll cover that if you're able to attend the nutrition session. Avoid saturated fat, limits sweets and alcohol. Eat regular meals, and hopefully that will avoid snacking. Avoid junk food. We often get caught in food traps. We're too busy in the morning, so we skip breakfast. And then late morning we feel peckish and we'll grab a snack, often a sugary or unhealthy snack. Sometimes we work at our desk, we're overwhelmed with work, high stress, we skip lunch. Come mid-afternoon, we potentially end up binging. We often replace supplements, vitamin supplements, mineral supplements. Instead of having the greens, 5 a day is what's recommended, we just say, well, I'm having these pills, so I'm okay. It's far, far better to have all your vitamins, all your minerals naturally. They will digest better. Alcohol is another example. You may pop in for a quick half or a drink with your friend. One leads to another and another. So it's important you're aware of your food traps that apply to you. Be very decisive. If you are going to have that drink or that cake, limit it to a very small portion and get out of there. My background, as Umesh mentioned, is technology, information technology. One thing we used to say is if you don't measure, or if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. It's therefore quite important that we monitor our weight as an indication, and once we start monitoring our weight, we'll consciously be mindful of not overeating. I would say we should learn to monitor our calories as well. And once you've created your plan, stick to your plan. Try not to indulge. On a hot day, for example, you'll have a big ice cream. Fine, it's a good treat, and everything in moderation is important. But make sure you make up for that. Extra exercise, or cut out other unhealthy food in that diet. Preventing diabetes to avoid serious complications. Those complications are headed metabolic syndrome. Previous recommendations apply. Next one, those who are diabetic will be aware that you're able to monitor your blood sugar level. Keep that under monitor as prescribed by your GP. Regular exercise, walking, aerobics, resistance training, plus 2 days of strength training. Begin to lose weight. It's very, very important to lose weight if you're obese or overweight. If your weight is normal, maintain it, but maintain it with a good, healthy diet. Drink plenty of water. 6 to 8 glasses is what's recommended by the Eat Well Guide, which is published by the NHS. I would say that is the minimum. If you can, have some more. Consume lots of fiber. Porridge in the morning is an example of that. Fiber is very good for your body. It helps improve your metabolic rate, and it reduces the danger of diabetes. I'm almost going to keep to time, Umesh. These are the benefits of physical exercise. That's 150 minutes a day, 150 minutes a week. I'm recommending 300 if you're pre-diabetic, you're classified as obese, it's a BMI of over 25 is overweight, over 30 is obese. And these are the mental benefits of exercise. So in conclusion, obesity and diabetes could be, this is an additional point actually, could be a psychological condition. If that's the case, see your GP for a referral to a specialist. Use the medication for controlling your diabetes as prescribed by the GP, but in parallel, implement a regime of nutrition management and exercise management. We do plan a session on nutrition in the near future. I can do a session on exercise if you require. If there's enough demand, we can do a session in the park. Only 6 at a time right now. There is a structured program. It's a 16-week program. It's called Body FX. That program is aimed at exercise and
electricity.
that program is aimed at managing your nutrition over 16 weeks, get you into a routine, eating good quality food. It also provides 3 HIIT sessions, high intensity training sessions a week. And the aim of that program is to achieve good fat loss, improve your diet, improve your lifestyle. Programs are personalized, and this is roughly what the program looks like. The first 2 weeks are focused on creating education of what a nutrition-rich diet is. Your calories are 2,500 for men, 2,000 for women. That is actually the NHS and NICE recommended guideline. In the following 4 weeks, you reduce the amount of calories that you take, but we introduce intermittent fasting day and also a fiber break day. And then weeks 7 to 16, you manage your calories, you have intermittent fasting days, and on those fasting days, which is just 1 day a week, you're only consuming 600 to 800 calories in those days. And that's the first 2 columns tell you the NHS guideline for carb, protein, and fat intake. But on this program, it focuses more on more protein, less carbs. The reason for that is carbs translates to glucose into sugar. And if we are fat, what we're aiming to do is reduce that fat. So I've gone through a knowledge session. I'm just concluding now on diabetes and obesity. I've given you some overriding rules that we must all control and be observant of. And in the future, we can do sessions on nutrition and group exercise. The key message again is manage your weight, control your diet and your lifestyle. And here's my contact details again. Umesh, thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh. If anyone's got any questions, please put them on the chat, and we will request Shailesh to answer them. Shailesh, I've got a few questions, which if you can throw some light on those for me, please. So the first question is from Sushila Shah, and the question is, if you have thyroid, it is very difficult to control weight because of low metabolism. What are your thoughts on this?
I do agree with that, especially if you're underactive thyroid. My thoughts on that are that we will get medications, thyroxine, from the GP to manage our thyroid condition, but it still doesn't prevent us from good quality diet and a good quality exercise. I actually, for my yoga course, which I completed way back a few years ago, I did a program on managing. I had 2 clients who were my case study on managing an underactive thyroid person. And we were able to reduce the lady's medication. It was a 3-month program and significantly improve her lifestyle and her diet. So I think I accept the statement. It is completely correct. It is very hard to control your weight, but I would still urge people with a thyroid condition to observe the rules of good, rich, nutrition-rich diet and exercise and lifestyle.
Thank you, Shailesh. I hope, Sushila, that helps your question.
There are some specific yoga exercises that do help the thyroid condition. And if Sushila Ben wishes to email me, I can suggest some specific exercises that can help control a thyroid condition.
Shailesh, can you put the slide showing your details, telephone number, and so people can make a note of that? It was that one, yes. So Smita, there's the details for Shailesh, his telephone number, his email address as well. The next question I have, Shailesh, is what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting and Jain fasting?
They have proved to be very beneficial in a fat loss program. the 16-week Body FX program I mentioned, apart from the first 2 weeks, there's an intermittent fasting period of 4 weeks where you have 2 meals a day with controlled calories, 1,000 calories, and the remainder of the program, which is 10 weeks, you have just 1 meal a day of 800 calories. That's the, in the stricter sense, that's the intermittent fasting program. We can also do a full day fasting, upwas. Not everybody can handle that, but I certainly say intermittent fasting as part of a controlled nutrition program is a good thing, and it would certainly help fat loss. But I urge people to do that if they've not done it before, under guidance.
Thank you. The next question we have is from Ashwin Sumaria, and his question is jaggery better than sugar?
Marginally. So we covered this in the nutrition program. Jaggery is between 60 to 80% sugar, so it's still sugar. It's better than raw white sugar, better than saccharins and sugar substitutes, but we have to have something sweet. Stevia is a better product, jaggery in very, very small quantities, but ideally try not to have added sugar with anything we eat or drink.
Thank you, and hope that answers your question, Ashwin. The next question I have is, being a vegetarian, what foods should diabetic eat protein-wise and for fiber?
Can I cover that in the nutrition session?
Yes.
But
do you want to give an overview?
The overview is we need to minimize our sugar intake. We need to minimize our carb intake because they produce sugars. Fruits are a requirement, but avoid sweet fruits. So have passive fruits like strawberries, like bananas, like avocados. And I cover that in some detail. I think I've got 1 or 2 slides on that. I'm sorry, who was that question from?
That was a question from Mr. Makrania.
Okay, Mr. Makrania, if you email me, I will send you a couple of slides on giving you tips for that. Otherwise, we'll cover that in the next session.
Right. Okay, so there is another question. Where would you find how to measure the calories for Indian foods like chapatis and curry?
Okay. There's a number of applications, apps available. The one I use is called MyFitnessPal. It's got, MyFitnessPal is free unless you want micronutrients. It measures macronutrients. And there you can actually create your own meal plans, your own menus, and you can share them globally with everybody else. But it also includes hundreds and hundreds of Gujarati menus, Asian menus generally. So there's a very good chance that you'll pick up something there. But if you take chapati as an example, you can actually say you used a particular flour. Let's say you used 400 or 300 grams of flour. You put 1 spoonful of ghee, you put X, Y, and Z. You put the ingredients in, and the system will work out for you the carb content, the protein content, and the fat content. So it is available. And if we need to, I can demonstrate MyFitnessPal, which is the one I'm familiar with, on a call such as this. If anybody else who's attending uses another applications that they're very, very happy with, they're welcome to come and present that to all of us as well. You don't need to measure what you eat every day. Once you get used to an understanding of your portion sizes, and the calories you're taking, it will become a rule of thumb. You'll begin to read the labels in the shops, you'll begin to buy more natural food, you'll begin to look at how much sugar, how much fat is in a product in the labels, and you'll shop accordingly. So it's really, in the early days, it's just about awareness, education, and getting to understand it using the app. They're free, they're easy to use. Once perhaps you've had a knowledge session on it.
Shailesh, I used to use, and I now, from time to time, I do use an app called Healthify Me, which is an Indian app, and it's got all the Indian foods on it. So that I found it to be very, very useful personally. But that's yet another app that people can download. It's completely free as well.
Yeah, I've heard of the app, and I've had good reports on Healthify as well.
I have got a few more questions, Shailesh. So the next question is, and it's from Manoj. And first of all, Manoj, no question is a silly question, because if you are thinking about it, somebody else must be thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
So the question is, and thank you for asking this question. Manoj says that he has read that methi or fenugreek
Yes.
powder helps regulate cholesterol and enhances insulin production. Your thoughts, please.
I've heard the same. I think all green vegetables are good for us. Methi, dana, spinach. I would need, I've not researched into this. I always prefer to answer questions with some research, some facts. So I've definitely heard that. I suspect it's correct. A lot of our Ayurvedic herbs use methi in there. And a lot of our Ayurvedic principles of our diet, the Indian diet, Gujarati diet, are based on Ayurvedic principles. They go back hundreds, thousands of years, and they're proven to be very valuable from a medicinal health perspective. So I suspect it's true, but I think you said Manoj, apologies if I got that wrong, Manoj. I'd be very happy to look into that if you'd like me to. Just email me and I'll do some research and give you an opinion.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this session has been recorded, and Muhammad Al-Bayati and Smita, this session, I can certainly email it to you, email you the link where I will be putting it. It's going to be on my YouTube channel. So if you can send me a WhatsApp message when you have a minute, then I will certainly send you the link to my YouTube channel, and then you can access the whole recording. My telephone number is, if anybody wants to take that, my telephone number is 0794 182 0801, and my name is Umesh Shah. Smita, thank you. Yes, we are going to do a follow-up session on nutrition, and definitely once I have your details, you'll be kept in the loop, and you will be informed as to when the session will be. Shailesh, I think we will do that next month.
Sure, no problem. And if anybody has got any questions or specific things that they want to discuss, email me. Even on the website, there is a contact form. They can contact me through that, WhatsApp, or email.
Right, okay, so I've got a question from Anil, and his question is, why are you demonizing saturated fat? Saturated fat is part of good fat. Fat should be main part of diet.
I think to have fat is an important part of the diet. It depends on how much fat. We do cover good fats and bad fats and how much fat you should have in the nutrition session.
Okay. What else can I think that's about it. Are there any more questions? I'm just going through, just a second. Karela, what's your thoughts on Karela beta goat with in relation to diabetes?
I'm sorry, I'm going to give you the same answer. I eat all of those, Karela, bitter gourd, same family. I eat all of those. I think variety of vegetables will give us a good, healthy, balanced, nutrition-rich diet. I've also heard they're good for calorie control and diabetes. I'm happy to look into that to reconfirm if people would like me to do that. I've made a note for Karela and Methi.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there are, okay, there's a question over here. What is the best time to have fruits?
Okay, just one thought on the Methi and Karela. One of the things that in Chinese and Ayurvedic nutrition programs, people say you should have all tastes. And there are very few tastes that we eat on a day-to-day basis which are bitter. And Karela, Indian gooseberries are two examples of very, very good vitamin-rich fruits and vegetable that are considered to be very healthy for us. I wasn't avoiding your question. Would you mind repeating it, please?
I think the question was, what are your thoughts on Karela?
Sorry, on fruit. Right.
Oh, on fruit. What's the best time to eat fruit?
Okay. So if a person is obese or diabetic, try and spread your fruit across the day. So if you're going to have 5 pieces of fruit a day, which is quite a challenge for some, and I'm completely aware of that. So I have balanced fruit in small chunks, 3 to 4 times a day. So for example, I may have a banana. Avocado is a must because of good essential fatty acids, omega-3, 6, 9. Apple, pear, these are things that are regularly in my diet. Grapes. Spread it across the day. You don't want a big sugar surge by sitting down and having 5 pieces of fruit in one go. However, everybody's digestion, they do say, experts, scientists say, sugar from fruits is good for you. It's not bad for you as raw sugar or free sugar. So if your lifestyle is such and your metabolism is such that you can take 4 or 5 pieces of fruit at the same time and have it as a meal, standalone meal, then that would probably be okay for you as well. So I think it's horses for courses. It depends on the individual. But as a general rule for diabetics and obese people, it's better to have small portions spread across the day rather than have a sugar surge because you have issues with insulin control.
Perfect. Okay, there's one more question, over here. There is a lot of gluten sensitive, lot of people with who are gluten sensitive, and they use Ferrari flour.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
I think those who have issues digesting gluten products, wheat, in chapatis is a good example. Then Ferrari lot is a very good substitute. And people who have issues with gluten, wheat flour, for example, they will find a big improvement if they have Ferrari chapatis. It's not cheap. I can't remember the price, but you know they only buy it in small bags. But it's a good thing to do if you have issues with gluten.
I know that my wife uses Shailesh. My wife Rohini uses Ferrari lot daily. And to be honest, there is no difference at all in terms of the taste. There's absolutely no difference at all.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of a number of different flowers, but I think it's actually the way to go. Personally, I think it is very good.
There's also a lot of multi-grain flours available now, 6 grains, 10 grains. They're
Yes.
also they're protein rich, fiber rich, with either no gluten or some gluten, limited gluten. And people who have issues with gluten, you'll find that eating Ferrari lot will make them feel a lot lighter and see an improvement in their digestion.
Yeah.
It's very stodgy. Wheat is not what it used to be. It's mass produced. It's no longer organic as it used to be 50, 70 years ago.
Okay. Let's see if there's any other question. I think that's about it. There's one more question which has come in. What about Chucky flour? I don't know what Chucky flour is. It's a brand name, right? Chucky flour.
I've seen the bags, and I believe there's 6 or 8 grain flour. It does include wheat, but I ask people to consider the multi-grain flours. I have no experience. We have Charu is next to me. We have no experience of using multi-grain, and as it happens, last time we went to Grand Mill, we did ask if they do smaller bags so we could try the multi-grain flours. We don't know what sort of chapatis they'll be doing.
Okay.
It's a trial and error. Multi-grain is better than whole wheat flour because of the extra nutrients. It includes things like oat, corn. So you've got protein, you've got different types of higher fiber.
Okay, so I've got Parul, her question and information is honey good for diabetics?
I would need to do the research, but gut feel tells me that it's high in sugar.
Right.
So if you like honey with porridge or whatever, pancakes, I would say moderation.
Okay.
Buy quality honey and have it in moderation.
So what Parul is referring to, and I'm just looking at the question again, Shailesh, she's saying that 25 milligram of honey to be compulsory for a patient, a diabetic patient in the Unani system. Unani system. I'm not too sure, but
I'll look into it.
Yeah. Okay. And
the name you mentioned was Parul. If she can email me where she's seen this, I'm happy to look into it.
Okay. Parul, what I'll do is if you send the question directly to Shailesh, or you can send it to me, and I'll forward it to Shailesh, and then and let's catch up as well, Parul.
The same is said for ghee. 1 teaspoon of ghee is very good for you, Ayurvedically speaking.
Right.
And if people do, I urge you to consider Vedic ghee or Ayurvedic ghee. It's purest form of ghee from milk, straight from cows. It's grass-fed cow's milk. It's called A2 milk.
Okay. Another question from Ashwin Sumaria. And what's your opinion on Manuka honey?
We've used Manuka honey for years for medicinal purposes. It's a very good honey. We used to buy the New Zealand honey. And again, if you're looking for a remedy for sore throats, coughs, and things, Manuka honey is a better honey to buy than standard off-the-shelf honey in a supermarket.
Question is, how is it okay for a diabetic to have Manuka honey?
I will look into that.
Thank you, if you could.
You know, similar to a jaggery question, it's still sugar.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so, but let me look into that.
I'll appreciate it, thanks. I think that's all the questions. Shailesh, what we'll do is if you can prepare the answers to the questions that you've taken away, and then maybe I can put them on the YouTube channel as well. You know, we'll do a question, just a document on question and answers for this, and then I can put that on my YouTube channel.
Okay, I've got 3 things I'm taking away. One is methi, karela, and honey, Manuka honey.
Yes. Okay, I think
on Manuka honey because it is a good honey.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of the session. It's just, well, coming up to 1:45.
3.
2:45, sorry, yes. Yeah. Right. I'd like to say thank you to you, Shailesh, for a very informative afternoon. This topic is something which I think as people from South Asian descent, I think we need to be very aware of. So it's great, and I think it was very informative. I think we need to do that follow-up session on nutrition and just kind of go a bit deeper as well. And then I think if anyone else has got any questions, they can either directly email you, or even if they send it to me, then I'll pass them on to you and we can cover them in the next session on nutrition. Other than that, so thank you so much, Shailesh, really do appreciate. At the same time, I'd like to say a big thank you to my dear friend Kirit and Marina as well for helping me with setup of this afternoon's Zoom session. I think that's it. So thank you, and until next time, we'll meet again next. I think there's another session which I'm trying to sort out for next week, and details of that will be sent out.